Welcome to Nightmare Narratives, where the shadows come alive and every story leaves a chill down your spine. Are you ready to step into the darkness? Let the nightmares begin. If you find an unopened present under your tree on the day after Christmas, call the police. I'm going to make this as short and as clear as possible. If you find any Christmas presents under your tree after Christmas Day that you didn't place there, call the police. Leave the house immediately, and whatever you do, do not open the gift. I lived with my wife, Maria, and my two young boys in Melbourne, Australia. That's where my wife is originally from, and most of her family lives less than an hour from us. On Christmas Day, we usually have a lot of presents under the tree. Gifts from me and my wife, gifts from grandparents, gifts from the boys, all are placed there. That's why last Christmas, we weren't worried when I found a present under the tree that neither me or my wife had put there. It could have been from one of our parents when they came to visit on Christmas Eve. It could have been from one of the boys. It could have been from many people, and we didn't give it a second thought. It had no gift tag on it, so we decided to leave it there and not open it until we found out who it for and who sent it. So, when I got up on the 26th early to make coffee, that was the only present left under the tree. It was a small box, maybe 6 inches tall and 6 inches wide, wrapped in bright red wrapping paper. There was a little green bow on top, and it all looked expertly wrapped. But when I came out into the living room that morning, there was something off about that present that I couldn't place. It wasn't until later that I realized the wrapping paper had been completely green on Christmas Day, and it wasn't until later that I noticed that red had leaked on the floor around the present as well. Throughout the day, our kids played with their new Christmas loot, as Maria and I called different relatives asking if they left a little red gift under our tree. As the day went by and more family members told us that they hadn't sent a gift, we started to get confused. We weren't worried, but we were definitely puzzled. There had been no signs of a break-in or any forced entry, but the gift had to have come from somewhere. Mary and I spent the entire day trying to figure it out, and when night came around, we were mentally exhausted. We put the kids to bed and followed soon after. Now, I'm usually a pretty heavy sleeper, but something woke me up that night. I'm not sure if it was a noise I heard or if I just had too much coffee during the day, but I found myself wide awake at 2 a.m. and my throat was dry as hell. I finally slid out from under the covers and slipped into my slippers, careful not to wake Maria sleeping next to me. I walked out of our bedroom to the kitchen, almost slipping on some spilled water on the floor. Muttering a curse, I turned on the kitchen light and poured myself a glass of water from the refrigerator. I stood there in silence for a few minutes, drinking my water as I leaned against the kitchen counter. My mind was occupied with travel plans. We were going to Japan for New Year's, and when I finished the water, I put my glass in the sink and turned around to turn off the light. By chance, I happened to glance over to the hallway that connected to the living room, and that was when I froze. From where I stood, I could see right to our Christmas tree, and I saw that the mysterious present had been opened. And what I had almost slipped on, what I had first thought was spilled water, was revealed to be a trail of bright red blood leading from the opened present towards the bedrooms. My body was frozen in shock for a few minutes, but I quickly snapped out of it. I grabbed the biggest kitchen knife we had and I crept over to the hallway, careful not to make a sound. My heart was racing as I followed the trail of crimson back towards the bedrooms, and my blood froze when I realized that it was leading me into the boys' room. I stood outside the bedroom doorway for a moment, trying to build up my courage for whatever waited for me in the darkness. Then I sprang into action, running into the room and switching on the lights in one quick movement. I had tried to prepare myself, but what I saw made the knife slip out of my hand and my jaw drop in horror. My boys had twin beds, one on either side of the room. Micah, the oldest, was on the left side, and Jamie, who was a year younger, was on the right. I saw Micah first, sleeping soundly and wrapped in his sheets, but when I turned to Jamie, I almost threw up. His sheets had been thrown off the bed, and he was sprawled out across his mattress in an unnaturally rigid pose. His limbs were bent back in ways that no bones should be able to move, and his unseeing eyes were open and stared up at the ceiling. Blood covered his pillow, his mattress, everything. Attached to his neck was the most hideous thing I'd ever seen. It was like a cross between a leech and a slug, and was easily almost 2 feet long and almost a fourth of that in width, and the thing was latched onto his neck. It was smooth and slimy and dark green, almost the exact same color of a Christmas pine. But as I stared at it for a moment, I realized it wasn't attached to his neck. It was in his neck. The creature had torn open Jamie's throat and had burrowed its head into the exposed wound. As I stared on in horror, I saw the thing pulse and writhe as it fed off of my dead son's blood and God knows what else. For a cursed minute, I couldn't move. I couldn't even look away. I stared on in frozen horror before I finally tore myself away and stumbled back into the hallway. I knew Jamie was dead without having to check, and I knew that I had to call the police. But I think I was going into shock, because all I could think of in the moment was to stagger into the living room to inspect the present. It was then that I saw that the box was logged through with blood, and the top of the box had been ripped off by the creature that was held inside. There was something in there that I couldn't make out, which the police later identified as a dismembered hand, most likely put there to feed the creature once the box had been sealed. Yet when I bent down to inspect the box, I saw a small scrap of white paper that was perfectly unstained by the blood. I picked it up with shaky hands, and I was barely able to make out the words written on it in impeccable cursive. This is the gift that awaits everyone on the naughty list. Let it be a warning to you all. Cole is hungry, and he will feed. Merry Christmas. I emailed my son's Christmas list to Santa. I didn't expect to get a response. I want some Hot Wheels, a stuffed iguana, and... My 6-year-old son Jeff sat on the bed next to me, thinking. I was typing up my son's Christmas list on my laptop, preparing to email it to Santa. Of course, I was merely going to send it to myself. I didn't trust any of those email addresses claimed to be run by the real Santa, and I wanted to play it safe, just in case some creep was trying to use parents' email addresses to stalk their children. Is that it? I asked Jeff. He was always a low-maintenance child and never demanded a whole lot. Jeff nodded. That's all I can think of, he said. I smiled and sent the email before closing my laptop. Now we just need to wait till Christmas morning, I told Jeff. He smiled as he jumped off my bed and ran off to play with his toys. The next morning, while Jeff was at school, I checked my email and was surprised to see a message titled, "Your son's Christmas list," from an address I didn't recognize. I opened it up. Hi, Christina. I saw your son's Christmas list, and there's no need to buy those Hot Wheels or that stuffed iguana yourself like with last year's gifts. I can send it right to you, and you can give it to him on Christmas. I can also confirm Jeff has been a good boy this year, one of the best I've seen. Signed, Santa Claus, ho ho ho. I was confused. Who was this? How did they know my name or email? How did they know my son's name for that matter? Or what he wanted? I told myself it was just one of my friends from work playing along. Yeah, that was it. Yesterday I had chatted with some of my friends over texting about what our kids wanted for Christmas, so one of them had probably just made a new account to add to the fun. I deleted the email and went back to my usual business. Shortly after Christmas break began, I sent Jeff over to a friend's house while I went to the store and bought the toys he had asked for, along with some wrapping paper. After heading home, I checked my email again and noticed a new message from the same mysterious address that had emailed me last time. Hi, Christina. I saw you went out and bought the gifts that I said I'd bring myself. That's okay. I'll bring my own surprise gift for Jeff instead. See, I've been a little short on elves this season, and I've been looking for new recruits to help me make toys. Jeff is such a good little boy. He'll make a perfect elf. Hope you don't mind me taking him up to the North Pole on Christmas Day. I promise I'll bring him down every now and then to visit. Signed, Santa Claus, ho ho ho. My heart sank. I hadn't told any of my work friends that I had bought the gifts yet. Something weird was definitely going on. I decided to write a response back, angrily demanding whoever this person was to tell me who they were, why they were stalking me and my son, and informing him to stay the fuck away from us, or I would call the police. A few days went by with no response. I felt relieved, thinking the guy had finally got the memo and decided to leave us alone, and I completely forgot about it until Christmas Day. While Jeff was asleep during the night of the 24th, I wrapped up the presents and put them under the tree, as per tradition. The next morning, while I was still in bed, I expected to hear Jeff excitedly shouting from the living room that Santa came. I was surprised to hear absolutely nothing, not a single peep. I checked the clock. It was 8 in the morning. Strange, I'd usually expect Jeff to be up earlier than that, especially since it was the happiest time of year for a child. A few minutes passed, and I quickly became concerned. I decided to go downstairs to Jeff's room and check up on him to see if he was okay. I knocked on his door before cautiously peeking in. He was laying in his bed, the blanket pulled up to his head and his back facing me. "Jeff?" I asked. He replied with a weird grunting sound. Was he sick? I walked over to him and rubbed his head. "Jeff, get up! Santa came!" I stopped when I felt a pair of weird bumps on his head, buried underneath his hair. Jeff then turned his head to me, and I jumped in shock. His ears were pointed and covered in hair. His face was stretched out like a dog's muzzle. He grunted again and stuck one arm out from under the blankets. Instead of a hand on the end, there was a furry brown hoof, like that of a goat. My face turned pale as I stared in shock, unable to speak or move upon seeing my son's current state. At that moment, I heard a knock on the door. I ran upstairs, desperately hoping it was one of my friends from work who could help. I looked through the peephole and noticed an unfamiliar figure standing at the door. He was overweight, with a red jacket and a long white beard. Thankfully, I had locked the door, so the man couldn't come in even if he wanted to. I then remembered the weird emails from this month, so I pulled out my phone and opened up my web browser. There was an email from last night, sent from the mysterious address. I opened it up, and what I saw nearly made me faint. I just stood there reading the message over and over again, trying to process everything as the man at the door continued to knock. "Hi, Christina. Since you turned down my request to make Jeff into one of my elves, I decided Jeff would make a good reindeer instead. My current reindeer are getting too old to pull the sleigh, and I need just one more kid to complete my new team. I'll be coming over tomorrow morning to pick him up. Signed, Santa Claus. Ho ho ho." I found my childhood Christmas journal, and now I can't sleep. I've been helping my parents pack for their move to their new house south of here. Mom's arthritis is getting worse, and they want somewhere warmer. While clearing out my old bedroom closet, I found a composition notebook decorated with Christmas stickers and what I'm pretty sure is crushed candy cane. The cover was sticky with that decades-old residue, glittery stickers peeling at the corners, exactly the kind of thing I would have done as a kid. The first page is dated December 2008, scrawled in my childish handwriting. Looking at those big, uneven letters brings back memories I thought I'd forgotten, the sight like a slap of nostalgia. I could practically feel the scratchy tip of the marker I'd used. "Hi! I know Santa is real because he's living in our basement." I almost laughed when I read that. I had such an active imagination as a kid. But as I kept reading, my hands started shaking, the smile melting off my face, replaced by a hollow pit in my stomach. I found him when I was looking for my old toys in the basement. He was sitting behind the Christmas boxes, and he had a red coat just like the real Santa. His beard was kind of dirty, and he smelled weird, like old milk or something. But that's probably because he was tired from delivering presents. He told me not to tell anyone he was here, because it's supposed to be a secret. He said he picked our house special. I remember this now. I remember how proud I felt that Santa had chosen our house, how special I thought I was. The memory sat like a sour lump in my throat as I read on. I've been bringing him cookies and milk like you're supposed to do. He eats them super fast, and sometimes he asks for other stuff too. I gave him my sandwich yesterday, and he ate it in 2 bites. But now Mom is mad because food keeps disappearing from the kitchen. I told her it was for Santa, but she just sent me to my room. Dad got really angry today because someone took Mom's wallet. I wanted to tell them it was probably Santa getting money to buy presents, but I promised I wouldn't tell. Santa said if I tell anyone about him being here, something really bad will happen. He doesn't say ho 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 like in the movies. His voice is all quiet and scratchy instead, like the sound of leaves crunching under your feet. My hands are trembling so badly I can barely hold the pages steady. I remember Mom's missing wallet. I remember Dad installing extra locks on all our doors. I remember them fighting about calling the police. The next entry made my blood run cold. I heard him walking around last night. The stairs made creaky noises when he went up and down, like when Dad goes down to get tools. He stopped outside my door and breathed really loud. I could hear him through the crack under the door. It was slow and heavy, like the sound the fridge makes when it's running. I think he was checking if I was asleep. Good thing Mom always makes me lock my door at night, or Santa would know I was awake. Mom, oh God, Mom. She always insisted I lock my bedroom door at night. She never told me why. I just thought it was one of her weird rules. The final entry is dated December 23rd. Santa is gone today. All his stuff behind the boxes disappeared too. He must have gone to visit other houses. Mom keeps crying and hugging me, saying we're so lucky. I don't know why she's upset. Santa chose our house special. That means I must have been really good this year. There's lots of police cars at the Johnsons' house next door. Mom won't let me look out the window, but I bet Santa is visiting them now too. I saw the police finding pieces of his red coat in their trash can. Santa must have gotten a new coat. The old one was pretty dirty anyway. I can't wait for Christmas. P.S. We're gonna stay at Grandma's house for a while. I hope Santa knows where to find me there. I had to stop reading. I just called Mom. She broke down crying when I asked her about that Christmas. Through her sobs, she told me the truth about the Johnsons, about what the police found, about why we never came back to that house until New Year's Day. I'm sitting in my old bedroom right now, and the house creaks and groans like it always did, but tonight, the sounds feel different, more deliberate. I swear I can hear footsteps in the basement. Dad says it's just the old heating system acting up. But I found something else while packing today. In the basement, behind the stacks of boxes, there was a dirty piece of red fabric snagged on a nail. The smell hit me before I could even touch it, a rancid mix of sweat and decay. Update. Mom finally told me everything. Apparently, after they found what happened to the Johnsons, the police discovered similar cases in 3 other states, all in December, all in houses with children, all involving someone who had been living in their basements for days before the murders. They never caught him. I'm helping my parents move next week, but first, I'm burning those Christmas boxes in the basement. All of them. Thanks for venturing into the shadows with us on Nightmare Narratives. If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the so you never miss another terrifying tale. Have a scary story of your own? Share it in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Who knows? Your nightmare might be our next feature. Sleep tight if you dare.